Hey there besties! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're continuing our recap of the manhwa, Avoiding the Heavenly Emperor. If you're new to this series, check the description below for links to previous episodes. Lastly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. The judges met with the Empress Dowager to discuss the team's performance. I'm afraid we must address the matter of Red Group 1's manifestation during the latter half of the performance. Specifically, Bambini's manifestation, Lord Orium said, glancing around the room. It bore a strong resemblance to His Majesty's manifestation, he added, his tone cautious. Yes, it was somewhat similar, another judge murmured, stroking his beard thoughtfully. What's more, her manifestation improved dramatically during the performance. Indeed, an impressive achievement, a third judge agreed. The Empress Dowager observed them with calm detachment. In any case, it will ultimately be His Majesty who decides on the Heavenly Empress, one judge ventured, a note of unease creeping into his voice. The Empress Dowager's expression remained unreadable, but her gaze sharpened. Have you all forgotten that it is my prerogative to choose the Heavenly Empress? She asked, her tone cold enough to unsettle the room. No, Your Majesty. Of course not, another judge stammered. We only thought it would be preferable if His Majesty married a woman he loves. He forced a nervous smile. It would be ideal, the Empress Dowager conceded. A loving relationship between the Emperor and Empress would certainly be fortunate. But that is not the primary requirement. What we need in the Heavenly Empress is competence, not sentiment. This realm cannot afford an Empress who falls apart when tragedy strikes. We are not looking for an ordinary woman but someone capable of becoming the mother of all celestial beings. The room fell into uneasy silence as the judges exchanged uncertain glances. When the late Heavenly Emperor passed, the Empress Dowager continued, her voice measured, his lifelong companion, the imperial consort, was inconsolable. She wept without end, refused food and drink, and fainted twice during the funeral. Her cries, carried across the realm by the storytellers, echoed throughout the heavens. The realm might have fallen into disarray were it not for my intervention. I restored order. She paused briefly, letting the weight of her words sink in. And as you know, one realm cannot have two mothers. Once the new Heavenly Empress is selected, she will assume all my duties. I will retire to my private residence after 6 months, as outlined in the divine laws. Your Majesty, one judge spoke carefully. The senior advisors have expressed their hope that you might oversee the realm's domestic affairs for a few more years. No, the Empress Dowager replied firmly. The new Empress will take over, and I will step down. But isn't it too early to make such a decision, Your Majesty? If you would reconsider. I will not, she interrupted. The Heavenly Emperor is more than capable of ruling. After his marriage, he and the Empress must fully take on their roles as the true leaders of the realm. If I remain in power, even under the guise of assistance, it will set a harmful precedent. Her gaze swept over the judges, silencing further objections. The Empress will be young, and if she proves incompetent, it will pose a significant risk to our realm. The senior advisors may lend their support, but being a competent Empress requires more than guidance. The judges nodded hesitantly, realizing there was no room for argument. That is why competence is, above all, the most essential quality in a Heavenly Empress, she concluded with finality. The room fell silent as the Empress Dowager shifted her gaze toward Lord Orium, though she quickly looked away when their eyes met. I will prove, once again, that what a Heavenly Empress needs is not love, but skill, she declared. Outside, as Bini and Dongi made their way toward the carriage, Bini suddenly remembered something. Oh, I left something behind. You go on ahead, she told Dongi, hurrying back toward the building. I'm sure he's still here, she thought, her heart quickening as she climbed the stairs and moved through the halls. Then she spotted him, removing some papers from a wall. Her cheeks warmed with excitement. There he is. Sir, she called, bowing and catching her breath. Turned to her. How may I help you? He asked, surprised. What do I say? I came all the way back, but now I feel too shy to speak, she thought, her mind racing. Unable to find the words, she smiled, her ears burning with embarrassment. After a brief pause, she held out a small gift. Could you give this to the married woman who played the flute every night at Camellia Hall? Blinked, taking the item. Isn't this the souvenir given to all the contestants? He asked, examining the norigi. It has my name on it. It's proof I participated in the Heavenly Empress selection, Baini explained. But why give it to someone you've never met? On asked, puzzled. Baini smiled gently. The red team's uniform will always remind me of my time here. And during the team match, I remembered the sound of her flute. It helped me. Helped you? On echoed, his expression softening. I was able to manifest properly in the last 10 minutes thanks to her song, she admitted quietly, her voice calm and serene. On looked uncertain, shifting slightly as if unsure how to respond. If she refuses it, could you hold on to it for me? You can return it later, Baini said, her shyness peeking through again. On chuckled lightly. She might hesitate to accept it. How about I deliver it to your home instead? Her face grew hot with surprise. I'd appreciate that, or, she added, you could bring it to me at the Celestial Palace, when I reach the finals. Will you be going to the Celestial Palace too? She asked, her cheeks flushed. Of course, On replied with a smile. I'm the sergeant of the Imperial Guard. That means I'll still see him at the finals. What a relief. Baini thought, her heart light with happiness. All aboard, ladies. The carriage is leaving. Came a distant call, drawing their attention. On glanced down at the norigi, clutching it gently. I promise to keep this safe and return it when we meet again, he said, his smile warm. Baini bowed politely, her heart racing. Then I suppose I'll see you at the Celestial Palace, she whispered before turning to leave, rushing toward the waiting carriage. That should be all of them, On muttered, pulling the last paper from the wall. With a flick of his hand, the papers ignited and vanished into the air, scattering like embers. Ah, it's nice to feel the outside breeze again, he said, inhaling deeply. The barrier was lifted, the air outside confirmed it. He manifested his rack, opening a glowing channel. Stepping through, he arrived at his palace, where the Imperial Guards stood at attention. It's time to return to the Celestial Palace, Your Majesty, his general greeted him. On's fingers tightened briefly around Baini's norigi. Very well. Let's go. We have much to prepare, he announced, his expression firm. That afternoon, in Baini's village, she arrived home to an unpleasant sight. Her fence was defaced with slurs and ugly messages. There they go again. I was wondering why they'd been quiet for so long, she thought, her stomach sinking as she walked toward the gate. Two women stood nearby, gossiping in hushed but venomous tones. Can you believe it? After everything House Woon did for them, she just threw it all away. Do you know how many times Gyosel's family gave Shorty so the Bams could buy rice? And Gyosel? That poor girl was bullied because of Baini. It's not the first time, Baini told herself, exhaling slowly. I can't control what they think, so why let it bother me? She pushed the gate open quietly and stepped inside. At the entrance, her mother sat with a sewing project in hand, the needle moving steadily through the fabric. I'm home, Baini called. Her mother looked up, her face lighting up with warmth. Welcome back, sweetie. She rose to embrace Baini tightly. I'm making chestnut rice for lunch. Are you hungry? Not really, I had a big breakfast. Baini dropped her bag beside the door. Where's father? He went out to do some repairs. There's a patch of weakened clouds somewhere nearby, her mother said, returning to her sewing. So, the clouds are thinning. That probably means the ground below is shifting, Baini mused. At least it means father will have more work. Just then, the gate creaked open, and her father stepped in. Father! Baini called, rushing toward him. He grinned, brushing the dust off his clothes. Ah, Baini. You're back. He glanced at his wife, who was still bent over her sewing. His brow furrowed. Honey, weren't you supposed to rest? You had a fever this morning, he scolded gently, taking the fabric from her hands. I'm fine, she murmured with a smile, though she let him set the sewing aside. He turned to Baini and gave her a gentle pat on the head. I'm glad you're home. Well done. Baini beamed. How did everything go? Her mother asked as they all settled down together. Every single match was a pain in the butt, Baini sighed, sinking into her seat. Her mother chuckled. But you managed to do well all the way through, didn't you? I heard your meeting with that evil spirit went splendidly. And didn't your Oriental melon win 8th place? Oh, right. The melon. Baini sat up, grinning. The Heavenly Empress Dowager gave me an A for concentration and an A for quality. I'm so proud of you, dear. Her mother's eyes sparkled with pride. You must have been so nervous, but you pulled through. She's not asking about Gyocel. She must have heard the rumors, but she's leaving it alone for now, Baini thought, feeling grateful for her mother's quiet understanding. All right, let's talk over some food, her father announced, returning from the kitchen with a tray of dishes. Her mother's eyes widened. Wow, 2 of these rare fish? She exclaimed, marveling at the platter. Her father grinned, urging her to eat more, but she playfully refused. Baini couldn't help but laugh at the familiar scene between her parents. Just an hour ago, I was standing in Camellia Hall, but now I'm finally home. She leaned back, a sense of peace washing over her. It's so quiet and comfortable. It feels like the matches were just a dream. The next day, crowds gathered outside Lady Orium's house. And now, we live in front of Lady Orium's residence. I'm sure you've all heard the news. Lady Orium had curled mallow soup for breakfast, a food vendor announced eagerly. The excitement spread like wildfire. Within hours, curled mallow sold out across the markets. Vendors began calling it gold mallow, emphasizing its calcium-rich properties to draw in more buyers. Shoppers flocked to the vendor's stall, demanding their share of the newly celebrated vegetable. Oh dear, people are going wild, Baini thought, glancing at the live broadcast as she stitched her needlework. She hadn't realized back in Camellia Hall how popular this program had become. Now that the selection's popularity polls were starting, the audience reactions were even more frenzied. I should log in under a different name, she muttered, switching her profile to watch anonymously. And now, for a contestant everyone is dying to hear about, Lady Gyocel, the greatest genius in the heavenly realm. A storyteller proclaimed in another broadcast. The camera shifted to Gyocel's village, and Baini took a peek outside her window. A mass of fan clubs, storytellers, and even representatives from House Woon crowded the streets. Why am I even watching this? She grumbled, returning to her stitching. The interview continued. Gyocel was so kind-hearted, even as a young girl. She helped anyone in need, even though her own family barely scraped by, a neighbor recounted fondly. Baini's hands stilled. Is this how they see her? Have they all forgotten that my family taught Gyocel to play the rack? She only performed at festivals now and then. It's as if they're rewriting her past to crown her as the perfect candidate for the Heavenly Empress. I wonder how she feels about all this, Baini thought bitterly. A flood of memories hit her. Just the night before, Gyocel's mother had come by their home. Gyocel doesn't want to see you anymore. Her voice had been sharp and unforgiving. And I feel the same. Don't come near our house again. Baini's stomach twisted at the recollection. Did Gyocel lie to her mother too? Or did I never really know her? She wondered, pausing mid-stitch, her mood clouding. Suddenly, the broadcast stirred again. Look! Lady Gyocel just stepped out of her house. A storyteller cried as the cameras zoomed in. Gyocel emerged holding a simple worn bag that radiated a quaint, rustic charm. May I ask where you're headed? The reporters swarmed her, shoving microphones into her space. A relative is visiting, so I'm going to buy some desserts, Gyocel responded timidly, her voice soft and familiar. Baini's heart tightened. That voice stirred old emotions, memories of friendship she once cherished. Did she ever truly think of us as sisters? Baini wondered. Or did that bond shatter under the weight of the Heavenly Empress selection? Her jaw clenched, frustration rising. Or maybe, she thought darkly, I never really knew her at all. Later that afternoon, Baini sat with her rack, trying to summon a manifestation. A small bird appeared, fluttering and settling beside her. She studied it quietly. It feels easier now. My skills have definitely improved. A faint sense of accomplishment flickered within her. But I'm still not as good as Gyocel. Her thoughts drifted back to the creation of the universe, the unforgettable performance by Gyocel. How can she manifest like that? Baini wondered. Is it really just a difference in talent? As she mused, the bird dissolved into nothing. Oh, it's gone, she murmured to herself. She remembered how the phoenix Gyocel had manifested during their duet lingered for hours at the side of the auditorium, long after their performance ended. No matter how much Baini practiced, Gyocel's manifestations always seemed effortlessly beautiful, even when imperfect. They weren't just creations, they felt alive, radiating subtle scents, flavors, and an unexplainable charm. My skills have improved a lot during the Heavenly Empress selection, Baini thought, clenching her fists. But I still want to do better. She knew wishing alone wouldn't grant her the kind of talent people are born with. It was a truth she found hard to accept, and it weighed on her as her gaze turned somber. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called softly. Her father stepped inside, a warm smile on his face. "Bini, I'm heading to Soban Market. Do you need anything? Are you going to pick up Mother's medicine?" Bini asked, setting down her work. "I need to stop by the thread shop. Can I come with you?" "Of course, dear." At Soban Market, the usual bustle filled the air. "No, we don't have any curled mallow," a vendor exclaimed to an insistent shopper. "You won't find it anywhere. Lady Orium's curled mallow sold out the moment people heard she had it for breakfast. Did you know Lady Gyosel bought lychees today? They're sweet and delicious. There's only one basket left." Another vendor shouted, hoping to capitalize on the craze. Bini quietly observed the clever marketing strategies as she walked alongside her father. They picked up her mother's medicine and continued through the market. "All right, let's head home," her father said cheerfully, stopping briefly at a confectionery. "I'll have a bag of Tangerine pastries, please," he told the vendor, who quickly wrapped them up. As they walked back, Bini munched on a pastry, a small smile forming on her lips. "Father," she asked thoughtfully, "is it possible to create a scent in a manifestation once but never be able to do it again?" Her father glanced at her with a gentle expression. "Bini, what is the rack?" She answered carefully, "Rack is the strength that comes from one's heart, and a manifestation is that strength made visible." "Exactly," he said with a nod. "You've always loved these Tangerine pastries, haven't you? But not once did you whine for more." Bini tilted her head, puzzled. "What do you mean? Did you want me to whine?" He shook his head, his voice kind. "No, I was grateful. You were always so mature. But I also felt sad, knowing my daughter had learned to hold back all her emotions, whether joy, sadness, or frustration." Bini's smile faded, her expression growing tense. "It's okay," she replied quietly, though her heart felt heavy. "When we say play the rack, it also means to revel in joy, to embrace happiness," her father continued, stopping mid-step to face her. "If creating sense is your goal, try laughing without worrying what others think. Or cry without holding back. I believe the first time you made a scent, you were relaxed and happy." He smiled warmly at her. "And if you created it once, Bini, that ability hasn't disappeared. It's still within you." Bini stared at her father, his words sinking into her heart like the tangerine's sweet scent that lingered on her tongue. "Oh dear, I lost track of time. Let me just stop by the fish store quickly," her father said, glancing toward the market stalls as the sky deepened into dusk. "All right. I'll head to the thread shop then. See you later," Bini replied, giving him a small wave as they parted ways. As she walked, her mind wandered. "The moment I felt relaxed and happy. Wasn't I completely stressed and exhausted back then? I was preparing for the team match," she thought, confusion settling over her. Then, On's face slipped into her thoughts. "Oh no. I was thinking about On at that moment." Her face flushed in an instant. "No, no, no. That was just a coincidence. There's no way that has anything to do with him," she muttered, shaking her head furiously. But the more she tried to dismiss the thought, the faster her heart raced. "Anyway, this has nothing to do with him. I need to focus. I should go meet up with father," she decided, quickening her pace as she dashed through the bustling market. Just as she rounded a corner, she came to an abrupt stop. "What?" She froze, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. What is he doing here? Standing outside a jewelry shop was Yua. The other storytellers were rumored to be working tirelessly these days, spinning narratives about the heavenly Empress candidates. Yet here he was, strolling leisurely in the marketplace. And what's even stranger? Why is he in front of a jewelry store? Bini thought, puzzled. She watched as Yua inspected a hairpin on display. Isn't that place known for selling women's accessories only? Yua's expression softened as he admired the item, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Are you planning to buy that chignon hairpin? The shopkeeper asked, holding it out for him. Bini's eyes widened. Wait, isn't that a super expensive piece? She stared as Yua handed over coins without even attempting to haggle. He really has extravagant taste. That's the most elegant and beautiful pin in the store, she thought, unease prickling at her. He really does, a voice said quietly behind her. Bini jumped, startled. She spun around and found herself face to face with On. Her heart skipped a beat. You, she stammered, wide-eyed. Soon, Baini found herself sitting across from On at a modest restaurant, watching him eat quietly. How did things even get to this point? She wondered, still trying to piece it together. Moments earlier, she had been startled to run into him. You. What are you doing here? She had asked, her face warming as beads of sweat dotted her brow. Why else would I be at the market? To shop, of course, he had replied with a small laugh. Then, leaning forward slightly, he asked, let me ask you, why were you following that storyteller? Caught off guard, Baini flinched. It was just a coincidence. She stammered, trying to steady herself. Before she could say more, a voice interrupted them. Excuse me, but if you're going to keep talking, would you mind stepping inside? Or, better yet, how about ordering a couple of bowls of noodles? The chef stood nearby, hands on his hips, waiting expectantly. Baini glanced around in embarrassment, realizing they were standing right in front of the shop. So that's where all the steam was coming from. I didn't even notice the cauldron. She fidgeted. I should just leave. We'll take a table for two, On said casually, stepping inside. Wait, no, it's fine. Baini protested, trying to avoid the situation, but On had already entered, leaving her no choice but to follow. How did things end up like this? I wasn't planning on eating here. Baini sighed, feeling uneasy as she poked at her noodles. Across from her, On ate in that same relaxed way that made her all the more self-conscious. He glanced up at her. Don't you like the noodles? It looks like you're forcing them down just to avoid tasting them, he said, watching her closely. What do you mean? She spluttered. I'm not used to eating with strangers, that's all. She could feel the chef's eyes on her, and it made her even more uncomfortable. On leaned back with a faint smile. A stranger? Her? That's funny, coming from someone who punched me the first time we met. But seriously, why don't you just eat the way you normally do? I am eating normally, Baini muttered, grabbing another bite. On gave a knowing look. Camellia Hall's head chef told me how happy he was when a young lady named Bam Baini finished 3 whole plates of grilled salmon. Baini nearly choked. I'm pretty sure that was Ham Baini, not me, she said, dabbing her mouth with a napkin, her hands trembling slightly. That doesn't even make sense. On laughed softly, his smile lighting up his face. Baini felt her heart skip a beat. Why do I feel all warm and fluttery just because he smiled? She thought, pressing a hand to her flushed cheek. On leaned forward again, curious. By the way, you seem close to Yua. Do you two meet often, even outside the palace? Yua? Oh, you mean the storyteller with the peony sachet? So that's his name? Baini asked. You don't even know his name? On asked, puzzled. There wasn't really a reason for us to be friends, Baini admitted with a shrug. Although, I did try to ask him once, hoping my parents would catch it on the transmission. I see, On said thoughtfully, his tone neutral. He raised a hand to call the chef. Could we get a plate of dumplings, please? Coming right up, the chef called back cheerfully. Baini blinked, confused. He barely ate half his noodles because I'm such a slow eater, and now he's ordering dumplings? She glanced at On. He's surprisingly patient and considerate. Why am I noticing things like that? But still. There's a chance On has something to do with that strange event, the one that vanished like a mirage. Her father's words echoed in her mind. To play rack is to externalize your emotions. You need to release them, Baini. Only then will your sense come from the heart. Baini stole a glance at On, her thoughts swirling. Do I really enjoy his company this much? Inwardly, she admitted, it's true, though. I do have a good time whenever I'm with him. After finishing their meal, Baini and On walked together through the bustling marketplace. Do you often visit the marketplace, young sir? Baini asked. I suppose once every 3 or 4 months, On replied casually. So, you're not here for groceries, then, Baini guessed. Just a few things here and there, he said lightly. Then, as if steering the conversation elsewhere, he added, weren't you going to the thread store? From the way he shifted the topic, Baini felt her suspicions stir. He has to be a close acquaintance of the Heavenly Emperor, she thought. He must be checking the public's opinions about the Heavenly Empress selection, and he's likely from a noble family. I bet he already has a fiancé too. When they arrived at the thread store, Baini's thoughts raced. No. He probably isn't engaged yet, she reasoned, recalling the signs from her father's behavior over the years. A man with a lover wouldn't be so attentive to another woman. If On is showing me this much consideration, he must think of me as someone special. At the store, Baini turned to him. Would you mind waiting outside for just a moment? She asked politely. On gave a small nod, and she slipped inside. The shop was filled with women seated in a circle, chatting as they worked on their needlework. Lady Orium should definitely be the Heavenly Empress, one woman said with certainty. Think of the era we're in. With the support of House Hay, His Majesty could solidify his rule over the heavenly realm. That's true, but I prefer Lady Gyosel, another woman replied. Me too. She has such a kind soul, and she understands commoners, a third woman chimed in. Baini approached the shop owner. Hello, madam. I've brought the needlework, she said politely, placing the finished items on the counter. The owner gave Baini a sharp look, yanking the work from her hands. She examined the pieces for a long moment, her eyes narrow and critical. The chatter in the room grew quiet as the women's attention shifted to the interaction. Why is she taking so long? There shouldn't be anything wrong, Baini thought, feeling the tension rise. Look here, young lady, the owner began in a harsh tone, but she stopped abruptly as On stepped inside without a word, his presence alone silencing her. The woman's posture stiffened under his gaze, and her tone shifted. There won't be any new work for a while. You don't need to come back, even after the Heavenly Empress selection ends, she said, her voice now cautious. When did he get in? Baini wondered, surprised to see On standing beside her. The owner placed a small pile of coins on the counter. Here's your pay, she said curtly. Baini picked up the coins, her eyes narrowing. This isn't right. Are you sure you included everything? She asked, her tone polite but firm. Are you accusing me of cheating? The owner snapped. I embroidered 21 pansies and 8 cranes. I also made rose and dandelion designs on 2 long shawls and sewed a brand new shirt. You're short by 48 jawn, Baini stated confidently. The owner huffed in annoyance, tossing a few more coins onto the counter. There. Happy now? Baini calmly collected the money. People always try to cheat those they think are weak. It may not be much, but mother worked hard on these. There's no way I'll leave without what we're owed. With a polite nod, she turned and left the store with On following close behind. As they walked away, Baini heard whispers behind her. Goodness. Who was that? One of the women asked. It's her, the infamous Bam Baini, another replied in a hushed voice. What? She's the one who tried to bring down Lady Gyosel? A woman said in disbelief. I would have thought she was just a sweet young girl. Never judge a book by its cover, another woman scoffed. She's wicked to the core. Baini's heart sank, but she kept her expression neutral. I didn't want On to hear them speak ill of my family. She bit her lip, holding in her frustration. How much longer do I have to endure this slander? Baini closed her eyes, clutching the strap of her bag. Whatever. This happens all the time. Just let it go, she told herself firmly. She took a steadying breath, then smiled. So, young sir, I'm heading to the carriage station now. I hope you have a safe trip back as well, she said cheerfully. On was silent for a moment before a small smile curved his lips. Why don't I accompany you? I have plenty of time anyway, he offered. They walked side by side in comfortable silence, the sounds of the marketplace fading behind them. As they continued, Baini noticed something curious. His going to the farther station, even though there's one right here in the market. After a stretch of quiet, she turned to him. Oh, by the way, I wanted to ask, what's your instrument? At the question, On stiffened slightly, as if caught off guard. After a brief pause, he answered, it's the saxophone. A saxophone? Baini repeated, blinking in surprise. A Western instrument? That's unexpected, she admitted. Why, I mean, how did you end up playing the saxophone? She stopped walking and turned to face him, her tone genuinely curious. She had assumed he played something more traditional, perhaps a string or wind instrument from the East. But a saxophone? It just didn't fit the image she had of him. It doesn't suit him at all, she thought, though she quickly caught herself. Oh. Not that there's anything wrong with it, she added hastily. Her flustered comment made On chuckle softly. Then, with a playful glint in his eye, he mimed playing the saxophone, making a light-hearted tune with his lips. You totally made that up, didn't you? She accused, narrowing her eyes. No, I'm serious, On replied, though a nervous laugh escaped him, and he rubbed the back of his neck. Baini let out a soft sigh, half exasperated. "Why do you tease me whenever you get the chance?" "Let's hurry up," he said, dodging her question with ease. "You don't want to miss your carriage." "You're changing the subject again," she said, shaking her head but smiling. They resumed their walk, but Baini felt a warmth in her chest, her heart quickening with every step beside him. "Still, my heart flutters whenever I'm with this man." Her hand drifted to her chest, as if to steady the rhythm beneath her ribs. "Is this what led me to create that scent last time?" she wondered, her cheeks growing warm. When Baini was little, her father once rushed her mother to the clinic because she had fallen gravely ill. Baini remembered those lonely days, waiting by herself in their empty house. She also recalled standing awkwardly in front of the grain store as the owner refused to sell rice to her family. Both times, not a single tear fell from her eyes, not even in front of Gyosel, her only friend. "So why is it that whenever I'm with On, I feel like crying?" she wondered, her heart beating faster. Distracted by her thoughts, Baini misstepped. "Oh no," she thought, startled as she stumbled forward. Just as she braced for a fall, On's hand shot out, steadying her with a firm grip. He held her close for a brief moment, and her face flushed with warmth. Quickly, she pulled away, heart pounding. On glanced down at the paper bag she had dropped. He crouched, picking it up. "It's light," he commented, handing it back to her. Baini smiled as she accepted the bag. "Those are tangerine pastries. My father bought them for me," she said, her voice soft but happy. "You've got a caring father," On replied cheerfully. Baini opened the bag and held out a pastry. "Would you like to try one?" He took it with a small nod, biting into the pastry as they resumed their walk. "So this is what tangerine pastries taste like," he said thoughtfully. Baini looked at him, intrigued by the nostalgic look in his eyes. "When I was little, there was a man I knew," On began. "He said he would buy tangerine pastries for his future child." Baini's curiosity grew. "Tangerine pastries? Why that specifically?" On smiled faintly, as though recalling a fond memory. His wife suffered from morning sickness during her pregnancy, but pastries were one of the few things she could eat. If I remember right, her conception dream was about a tree with tangerines that looked like gold. He was certain they'd have a baby girl who'd love sweets. Baini listened closely, picturing the story as he continued. Before the child was even born, he made an advance payment to a bakery for 500 years' worth of tangerine pastries. He also planted 10 tangerine trees himself. "It sounds like he really loved his child," Baini said, smiling warmly. On nodded, finishing the pastry. "He did. I remember being envious when I heard that story. I always wanted to try these pastries for myself. Now I know what they taste like." Before long, they reached the carriage station. "Already?" On remarked. "That was too fast. I wish I could stay with him a little longer," Baini thought, her heart sinking as she slowed her steps. They came to a halt, standing under the soft light of the station lamps. On glanced at her thoughtfully. "This is a problem," he muttered to himself. "Pardon? What's the problem?" Baini asked, confused by his sudden remark. On turned to her, his expression unusually serious yet warm. "You, miss, are so strikingly beautiful that I'm reluctant to say goodbye." Before she could respond, he gently lifted a lock of her hair and brought it close to his nose, as if savoring its scent. As the carriage pulled into her village, the coachman called out, "This stop is Starry Night Village. Please remain seated until the carriage comes to a full stop." Baini stepped off at her stop, exhaling as she began walking. "No matter how I think about it, it still irritates me," she thought, pressing her fingers to her temple, frustration clear on her face. Moments earlier, On had halted their walk. "This is a problem," he had mumbled. "Pardon? What is?" she had asked, curious. "You, miss, are so strikingly beautiful that I'm reluctant to say goodbye," On had said, gently taking a few locks of her hair and bringing them close to his nose. Baini had frozen, her face flushing hotly. Before she could respond, he leaned in with a grin. "I should stop by the eye doctor while I'm out. Seems like my eyesight's gotten a lot worse all of a sudden," he had said, almost cheerfully. Baini had stumbled over her words, caught off guard. "What?" I know he was joking, but that man really enjoys teasing me, she thought, her hands trembling slightly even now. Still, no matter how she tried to push them away, his words kept echoing in her mind. Why do those words keep playing back? She wondered as her heart quickened again. Her thoughts were interrupted by the chatter of two girls walking nearby. Lady Gyosel's still at home, right? I wish I could see her, even just for a second. One of the girls gushed. I've only heard about her through the transmissions. I'm dying to see what she looks like. OUTCAST's doing a special feature on her at 8 p.m. tonight, the second girl added eagerly. The storyteller with the highest ratings? That just shows how popular Lady Gyosel is. How incredible, Biney thought wryly. I should just go home, she decided, turning down the road. When she reached her neighborhood, she found the street packed with people gathered outside Gyosel's house. Biney had to push her way through the crowd, muttering under her breath. Phew, I made it home. But look at that crowd, are they all here just to see Gyosel? She wondered, glancing over her shoulder at the restless fans. Suddenly, someone's voice cut through the buzz of the crowd. Just what kind of person is this Bam Biney, anyway? She lives right next door, doesn't she? A woman added sharply. I haven't seen a glimpse of her all day. I bet she's hiding because she's scared after doing something awful, a man muttered darkly. Noticing Biney standing by her gate, the woman turned to her. Hey, do you live here? Yes, I do, Biney replied, managing a polite smile. Then do you know where Bam Biney is? The woman pressed impatiently. Biney gave a small, amused laugh. I'm Bam Biney. Can I help you? The crowd fell silent, stunned. Without waiting for a response, Biney opened her gate and stepped inside, shutting it firmly behind her. Oh my God, did you see that? Someone in the crowd exclaimed. She slammed the door right behind her. Does she have no shame? Another said, their tone dripping with contempt. No wonder she'd do something so horrible. Biney's smile faded as she walked toward the house. I've been a loner in the heavenly realm for the past 70 years. This is nothing, she told herself, though the sadness lingered. Even if I tried to explain myself, no one would believe me. They'd just assume I'm jealous of Gyosel. In their eyes, Gyosel was the kind, dutiful daughter caring for her only parent, a hidden gem, a genius. Meanwhile, Biney was just the villain of the story, the one who harassed the brilliant lead. That's all they see, Woon Gyosel, the beloved protagonist, and me, the evil side character. Her thoughts were interrupted when her mother appeared, sitting at the entrance. Did he buy you Tangerine pastries again? She asked, her voice soft. Biney blinked, surprised. Oh, mother, she murmured, a small smile finally touching her lips. It must have been noisy all day, but neither of my parents seemed bothered by it. It hurts to see them like this, Biney thought, clenching her fists. She sat down beside her mother, trying to find comfort in the small, familiar space. Father still thinks I'm just a little girl, Biney said with a small smile. Her mother chuckled. You'll always be his little girl, even if you become a gray-haired grandma. Biney gave a reluctant laugh as her mother pulled her in for a hug. Come here, sweetie. The warmth of her mother's embrace surprised her. I've never been one to whine, not even as a child, Biney thought. Although awkward at first, the hug stirred something soft inside her, a ticklish kind of affection. This feels oddly nice. A warm, gentle embarrassment. I feel calmer somehow, she realized, sinking deeper into her mother's arms. The next day, Biney's phone rang. I am the director of the Regional Public Polling Agency under the Celestial Palace, the caller introduced. Am I speaking to Bam Biney of House 43, Starry Night Village, 23 Elegant Cloud Street? Yes, that's me, Biney answered, her heart lifting with excitement. It's finally here, the popularity poll. She thought. This poll was critical. Out of 1,047 contestants, each person could vote for just one. Depending on the results and public sentiment, even contestants who had been disqualified could have a second chance at the finals. But given the public's low opinion of me, it's unlikely I'll benefit from the vote. If I make it to the finals, it will only be thanks to my performance at the Heavenly Empress selection, Biney thought, feeling a pang of doubt. Please say the name and number of the candidate you wish to vote for, the caller instructed. Wait, this is about choosing the next Heavenly Empress? I thought it was just to decide who moves on to the finals. She thought, flustered. Clearing her mind, Biney answered cheerfully, I'd like to vote for number 324, Dong Dongi. Thank you for voting, the caller said, ending the call. Biney put down the phone and exhaled. All done. I don't regret it, I really wanted to give my vote to her. She smiled faintly, knowing she'd followed her heart. Since both my parents voted for me, I have at least 2 votes in the bag. Outside, the sounds of cheering filled the air as neighbors gathered to vote. Looks like everyone's in high spirits today, Baini thought, listening to the excited hum of voices through her window. Gyosel's mother must be handing out rice cakes again. She could imagine the festive mood outside, knowing how much her neighbors adored Gyosel. If everyone votes for her, she could really take first place in the popularity poll. Still, Baini reminded herself, the final results won't be announced until 4 p.m. Just then, the broadcast began. The familiar voice of a celestial storyteller echoed through the village, filling every corner with anticipation. Good afternoon, people of the heavenly realm. I am a storyteller from the celestial palace. The time has come to reveal which 600 talented ladies will advance to the finals. Individual results from the team match will be delivered to each contestant's home around 8 p.m. tonight. Please be prepared to receive them, the storyteller announced. With that said, I will now reveal the rankings from the team match. The live broadcast continued, drawing everyone's attention as they waited for the names and the fates that would shape the next stage of the competition. The storyteller announced the winner of the team match, Red Group 1, The Age of Discovery. Baini gasped, covering her mouth, her face flushed with surprise. We won? She said, her voice filled with excitement. But the audience seemed to like Blue Group 1 more. Maybe the public voted for their favorite song since they couldn't see the whole performance. Still, all the hard work feels worth it. I'm so happy. Second place goes to Blue Group 1, The Creation of the Universe. Third place is Blue Group 2, Hymn of Love, and fourth place is Red Group 2, National Anthem. The storyteller continued, announcing each ranking in turn. And now, the popularity results. He said. First place goes to Haorium. The crowd outside let out a collective sigh. Second place goes to Woon Gyosel. The crowd cheered loudly. Congratulations, Mrs. Woon. Someone said to Gyosel's mother. At this rate, your daughter might just become the heavenly empress. The broadcast was almost inaudible over the noise outside. Baini sat inside, straining to listen. The storyteller continued announcing ranks until the 30th spot, by which time most listeners had drifted off. After a while, he reached rank 801, Bam Baini. Baini chuckled, relieved. Well, I barely escaped last place, but that's not so bad. Given my background and how people view House Bam, it means quite a few people still voted for me. Her smile was full of quiet satisfaction. Nice. Baini said, stretching happily. Later that night, a scroll arrived for her. She whispered a short, tense prayer before untying the rope and slowly unrolling it. Peeking inside, her heart skipped a beat. She froze, then dashed to her parents' room. I made it, she said, her face beaming as she showed them the scroll. Her parents smiled warmly. Congratulations, darling, they told her. Several days later, at 6 a.m., Baini prepared to return to the Celestial Palace for the final stage of the competition. Her mother helped brush her hair, smoothing it gently. All right, you're all set, her mother said, giving her shoulder a gentle pat. Thank you, mother, Baini replied, smiling as she looked herself over before stepping outside. Pausing, she added, oh, by the way, there's a storyteller named Yua. He's been transmitting stories about me lately, so you might catch his channel sometime. She blushed, glancing at her mother, who looked a bit tense. Yua? Her mother asked, her voice a little tight. All right, dear. Hurry along now, she said, gently placing her hands on Baini's shoulders. Baini, none of these challenges are your fault, so don't let them discourage you, her father said softly. Baini smiled back at him. I'm proud of what you did, father. You chose to be with mother when she needed you, and I've never once thought I had a hard time because of it. He paused, touched, as she continued, I'm not ashamed to be a daughter of House Bam. There's no reason to be disheartened. Her father simply nodded, watching her with pride, as her mother held his arm gently, her gaze warm. Lady Bam Baini, please step outside and enter the carriage, an official announced from the gate. Baini took a steadying breath, thinking, I ranked low in popularity, and many think I'm jealous of Gyosel. I know the challenges will be even greater in the finals. The last few days, I worried I'd be disqualified. As she walked toward the gate, she reflected, competing in the Heavenly Empress selection has pushed me beyond my limits. It was so difficult at first, but I began to enjoy the ranking and the challenges each match brought. It feels like I'm growing, opening myself to new possibilities. Well then, mother, father, she said, bowing to them, I'll do my best and return with a smile. With that, Baini stepped outside, heading for the carriage. As Baini left her compound, she saw Gyosel near her house with her mother, as fans gathered, cheering her on. Gyosel, why are you still lingering here? The carriage has been waiting for you, and everyone's getting worried. Is something wrong? Did you forget something? Her mother asked warmly. Baini watched them quietly for a moment, her expression serious, before she turned and walked toward her own carriage. Please take a seat by the window on the right, a lady at the entrance instructed. Yes, ma'am, Baini replied, stepping into the carriage and taking her seat. She noticed another girl, a member of Red Group 1, nodding to her. Baini nodded back, recognizing they would be traveling together. As the carriage lifted off toward the Celestial Palace, her heart raced with excitement. We're not going to Camellia Hall this time, but to the actual Celestial Palace. The finals are finally here, she thought, her determination unwavering. Meanwhile, after Baini's carriage had left, her father turned to her mother. Did Baini just say you were? Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what she said, his wife replied, her face troubled. Baini's father grabbed a storyteller's guide from the table and flipped through its pages. He's not here. There's no storyteller named Yua listed anywhere, he murmured. If he's not in the guide, then he isn't officially assigned to broadcast the Heavenly Empress selection, he thought, scanning the listed storytellers again. You don't think it could be? His wife ventured, her face tense. No one's seen him for over 20 years, not since the Heavenly Empress Dowager took him in, she continued. Could he really be here to seek revenge for his mother, who was banished to the human realm? Baini's father shook his head, frowning. No. If Yua were up to something, the Heavenly Emperor would surely know. He shut the book, still troubled by a nagging suspicion. Many years ago, before the late Heavenly Emperor's passing, Baini's father, then General of the Imperial Guard, fell in love with the rack instructor of the palace maids, now his wife. They believed they were destined for each other, that their happiness would be everlasting. However, when his wife fell critically ill in the second trimester of her pregnancy, he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Desperate, he requested a leave from his post to care for her. For just 1 month, he pleaded before the Heavenly Emperor. But His Majesty, sensing turmoil, had replied, I have a sense of foreboding. You're the only one I trust to protect me. If a month is too long, at least stay by my side for 1 week. It was the 3rd time the Emperor had denied his request. Torn, Baini's father knew that if he left his wife's side, she might not survive. In the end, he made the agonizing decision to defy his liege, staying by his wife through her ordeal. Not long afterward, the Emperor passed away, and Baini's father's absence was fiercely criticized by the Celestial Court. What was the general doing while His Majesty perished? Someone had muttered in anger. His Majesty repeatedly asked for his protection, but he refused every time. How can a guard abandon his duty? Another whispered in disgust. I bet he didn't want to see blood on the battlefield, given it was his wife's first child. I heard he only came to the Celestial Palace 3 times that final month of her pregnancy, someone had murmured. Yes, and Lady Bam's health deteriorated severely after the birth. They practically pushed the late Heavenly Emperor to his death, another had added mockingly, with several joining in to slander Lord Bam. The one who finally stopped these malicious rumors was the current Heavenly Emperor, a young boy at the time. A letter of resignation from Bam Hyuksung, former general of the Imperial Guard, was accepted 1 month ago. Though he was summoned by the late Heavenly Emperor 3 times, he no longer held any duty to the guard. Do not give in to hatred in your despair, he had declared at the coronation ceremony. Rather than being swayed by all manner of ungrounded rumors in this time of chaos, I ask each of you to stay objective and reasonable. Hearing these words, Lord Bam, overwhelmed with gratitude, had looked up with tears in his eyes, feeling deeply moved. He still remembered how the young emperor had spoken each word with unwavering clarity, defending his family in a public declaration. Though the Heavenly Empress Dowager openly despised them, and the resentment of the Celestial Court did not fade easily, the Heavenly Emperor's words of innocence filled his family with lasting gratitude. Lord Bam thought back on this moment now with pride and concern. Even so, my daughter still carries deep scars from people's prejudice. That's why it's all the more unsettling to hear her mention Yua's name. The thought nagged at him. Why is Yue hidden among the storytellers? Suddenly, an idea flashed across his mind, and he chuckled lightly. Of course. Why didn't I think of it sooner? He knew well that ever since the emperor was a child, he'd always taken matters into his own hands, particularly those of great importance. I think I may have an idea of what's going on, he told his wife, smiling gently. There's a chance that His Majesty might be closer to the ladies in the Heavenly Empress selection than anyone realizes. The carriage arrived at the Celestial Palace, and as Baini stepped off, a smile spread across her face. I'm really here, the Celestial Palace, she thought, feeling a thrill of excitement. Spotting a sign for the red team, she headed toward a nearby table. Excuse me, I'm one of the candidates, she informed a staff member seated at the table. The staff member nodded. You may leave your bags with me, and please sign here, she said, handing Baini a registration sheet. Baini quickly signed her name. Your signature has been recorded, the staff continued. Whenever you need official documentation, such as employment or promotion certifications, or civil servant exam eligibility, you may request a copy of your selection results from regional government offices. Baini raised her eyebrows. Even for someone who's disqualified in the first round? Yes, the lady replied kindly. You can receive proof of ranking and evaluation starting from the preliminaries through the first round of the finals. Nice. This will help me on my way to becoming a grade 7 civil servant, Baini thought, feeling her resolve strengthen. She glanced around, noticing the familiar faces of red team members. Just as I thought. Almost everyone from Group 1 is still here. They really are choosing the strongest candidates carefully. Baini. A voice called out. Turning, Baini's face lit up as she saw Dongi approaching with a smile. Dongi. I've missed you so much. Baini said, reaching out to hold her friend's hands. Me too. It's only been a few days, but it feels so good to see you again, Dongi replied, her happiness matching Baini's. I was worried because I didn't see you in the bus carriage, Baini told Dongi as they stood together. I was here 6 hours early, red team leader duties, Dongi replied with a smile. I see. Baini nodded. Oh, right. Congratulations on getting 7th place in the popularity poll. Or are you a little disappointed? Not at all, Dongi replied with a warm laugh, her hands on her hips. People love a bit of suspense. Oh. I voted for you, too, Baini said. Me too. I wrote, number 1201, Bam Baini. Dongi added cheerfully. It's like we can read each other's minds. Baini said, and they both laughed. She was about to say something else when she caught sight of Gyosel standing nearby, her expression tense. Gyosel? How long has she been watching me? Baini wondered. Oh, whatever. She turned back to Dongi, continuing their chat until an announcement caught their attention. It must be starting soon. See you in a bit, Dongi said, hurrying off as staff called for the blue and red teams to assemble. Red team members, line up by the numbers you were assigned in the preliminaries. A staff member announced. Baini noticed the other red team candidates looking uncertain and coming toward her, smiling shyly. Why are they coming over? I'm not even an assistant leader anymore, she thought, realizing they might be confused about the lineup. I might as well help. I know most of their names and numbers by now. Red team. Please gather around me, she called out, organizing the girls as they formed their line. The staff gave a brief nod, and the announcement continued. All right, everyone. Now that we're all gathered, the opening ceremony for the Heavenly Empress selection finals will begin shortly. We'll proceed to the central plaza of the Celestial Palace. As the group moved together, Baini glanced around, taking in the scale of the event. 1,000 candidates, 500 from red team, 500 from blue. Unlike the preliminaries, this isn't by force. Now, only those with clear goals are here, she thought. Whether they're aiming for civil service experience like me or the chance to become the Heavenly Empress, everyone is more focused than ever. With the central plaza ahead, Baini's gaze sharpened, her determination settling in as the reality sank in. The competition will get even fiercer until 1,000 candidates become 16, then 8, then 2, until only 1 remains. Her expression turned serious as she resolved, in the end, someone is bound to be the Heavenly Empress. So I should be all the more determined. In the conference room for high-ranking officials at the Celestial Palace, a staff member approached the Heavenly Empress Dowager. The ladies have started toward the central plaza, Your Majesty, she informed her. Thank you, the Heavenly Empress Dowager replied. Well, then. Let's wrap up our meeting. We've now sifted the jewels from the stones. Our task now is to find the one that shines the brightest, she said, addressing the judges. Absolutely, Your Majesty, one judge agreed. On cleared his throat, drawing attention. I am certain each of you has at least one favorite contestant after watching the preliminaries. We must, however, exercise caution and avoid favoring any candidates based on personal preferences. The Empress Dowager fixed him with a cold look. A valid point, a judge murmured. The preliminaries have already given us a glimpse of their capabilities. Now, our priority is to determine the best among them, without needing to start from scratch. They'll undergo a series of tests to uncover their hidden talents, she responded coolly, prompting a tense silence as the judges exchanged glances. Indeed, one judge said. It's essential to discover their full potential. We shouldn't delay any further, another judge remarked. Shall we conclude the meeting now? As the judges left, On's voice broke the quiet. Do you still resent me? She hesitated. Why do you find fault with everything I say? He looked at her, then turned to the door. I'm simply working for the heavenly realm, Your Majesty, he said. Just as you once chose to. The room fell silent. She lowered her gaze. What would you have had me do differently back then? At the central plaza, the girls stood assembled, organized by team. Baini glanced around, observing the familiar faces. Just as I thought. Most of these faces are from Camellia Hall, even the Imperial Guards. And there's Yua, the storyteller with the peony sachet, she thought, noticing him among the storytellers, stifling a yawn. Seems like he'd rather be lying in a warm room, snacking on tangerines. She chuckled inwardly, noticing his pine-flower hairpin. Isn't that the one he bought at the market? He really is an amusing fellow. Then her thoughts shifted. But where's On? Shouldn't he be here as the sergeant of the Imperial Guard? Could it be that he was the only one replaced? A hint of worry crept into her thoughts. We were supposed to meet here at the Celestial Palace. Lady Bam Baini, a staff member called softly, pulling her back to the present. Yes? She replied, leaning in to listen as the staff whispered, could you oversee the red team until your team leader, Dongi, arrives? Why the sudden responsibility? Baini wondered, glancing up and spotting a nod from the head court lady. Ah, I see. This must be her request. Turning to the girls, Baini called out, everyone, please gather around. I'd like to go over a few things. The red team members focused their attention on her. The Heavenly Empress Dowager and the judges will likely be arriving soon. Let's get a bit more organized. This is their first impression of us for the finals. Let's make it a good one. All right. One girl responded, rallying the rest. Let's all line up in order. Baini caught a comment from the blue team nearby. Please line up neatly, like the red team. Looks like they're giving the blue team the same advice, Baini thought, as she watched both teams fall into orderly lines. As Baini stood watching the two teams, she noticed distinct differences. The red team is lively and quick on their feet, much like Dongi, she mused. Meanwhile, the blue team seems composed and graceful, more like Lady Orium and Gyocel. She wondered if each team had taken on traits of its leader or other prominent members. Still, I can't focus too much on the blue team, she thought, turning her gaze away and noticing Gyocel standing quietly in line. Suddenly, a judge began to read from a scroll. What's happening? Baini wondered. His Majesty Jaol in Hyan, the Heavenly Emperor, and Her Majesty, the Heavenly Empress Dowager, wish everyone the best of luck, he announced. What? The Heavenly Emperor himself is here? Baini thought in shock. He hasn't appeared publicly in the 70 years of his reign. She quickly looked up the steps, catching sight of two silhouettes faintly visible behind a jade screen. So they really are here. A murmur of excitement spread through the crowd as the storytellers narrated the unexpected development. Baini's gaze stayed fixed on the screen, her cheeks reddening slightly. The woman's silhouette must be the Empress Dowager, and the man's, the Emperor. All right, everyone, the announcer said, drawing attention back to the front. We'll be distributing your numbers shortly. Each contestant will choose her own number based on her speed and wits in the game of Catch the Fox. Wait, what does that mean? Baini wondered. The announcer explained further. This is inspired by the celestial fox, also known as the fire-tail fox, that lives in the celestial forest. Legends tell of a man who, lost in a dark cave, found his way out with the light of a celestial fox. When placed under a furnace for just 1 hour, its flame can last a century, providing heat and light. For this challenge, we've released these magical foxes across the plaza. The number you'll receive for the finals will depend on the order in which you catch a fox. The first to catch one will be number 1, and the last, number 600. Just then, a fox appeared beside the announcer, tugging at his robe. "Oh, my. Shoo, you little thing. Down to the plaza with you," he said, shooing it away. In a quick twist, the fox vanished. These foxes really must have magical powers, Biney thought, intrigued. "Now, get ready," the announcer called. This test must be about quick wits and agility, Biney thought. They want to see how cleverly and quickly we can catch these swift, magical foxes, all under the gaze of the Emperor and Empress Dowager. It won't be easy. The countdown began. As the challenge began, an idea sparked in Biney's mind, and she smiled.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.